Actually, it has a lot of authentic material, which is very important because we don't want to stick to the textbook all the time. And it's a perfect tool to teach culture in the classroom, since that we're teaching foreign languages, and maybe showing the students a YouTube video could expose them to the culture, and then we can have a discussion about it, and also attach them to the real life. So, can you see any drawbacks of using YouTube? Any drawbacks?
Well, right now they're adding all those commercials to it. You can't get rid of it. You just have to, so it does waste more of your time than it used to.
Yes, certainly. I found actually the most challenging thing about using YouTube is that it's very time consuming to the instructor or the professor, because you really spend a lot of time trying to find something appropriate to the level of the student, something that wouldn't have a lot of slang, something that wouldn't be very confusing to the students. There are a lot of bad things on YouTube, so you really spend a lot of time on that, and this actually is the most challenging thing. And also, since in Arabic, for instance, we have a lot of dialects. So, like we have an Egyptian dialect, a Moroccan dialect, we have like a dialect of like Syrian dialect, Lebanese. So when we we need to be very careful which video that we play in the classroom, and that wouldn't actually confuse the students. So these are basically the things that I talked about. And the second tool is using digital stories. So is anyone familiar with what digital stories are? So digital stories are exactly like a story, but they have sound, they have pictures, they have music. So this is actually the definition. So it's the practice of using computer-based tools to tell stories, and the focus is on a specific topic, and it contains a mixture of images, text, recorded generation, video clips, and music. So the students are supposed to put all this together in a form of a digital story. Can you see any benefits of that? Obviously, you're not trying to waste the time of the students by having them get pictures or like put them together with like record their sound, write a story. Can you see any benefits of doing something like that?
Well, they're doing all of this anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
They do it anyway. They're doing all of this on their own for fun. So.
Exactly. So you're having something fun, actually. You're encouraging them to do something that they're interested in, which is a big motivation, actually. Any other thoughts?
And students can convey some like certain opinions or messages, not only with the languages, but they can use also like gestures, or like videos, or music and sounds, and other.
Other than just recording like something or writing something. Not everything, actually. The language is just not about writing, with all my respect to writing. But actually, writing should be a step towards producing something else, which is speaking. So you're using writing, you're using reading, but this is actually for them to produce something, okay? So these are the benefits that I found for digital stories. So you can use it actually as a teaching tool. So professors together can record actually or make a digital story about something, and then about a certain topic or a certain thing that's hard to explain to the students. And then you can show it to the students in the classroom. For instance, for us in Arabic, for the advanced classes, I find it very hard to teach the listening material, because in the textbook they get them authentic material that are meant to very intellectual people who are very proficient in the language, or they are meant also to be for native speakers. So I find this like really hard to teach. So if we as faculty make such digital stories, we can show them to the students, and then we can actually vary in the materials we're using. Another thing is that you can use it actually as also an evaluation tool or an assessment tool. And that's also how I use it. I assign this as a final project to the students, and I ask them to make their own digital story. And I'm going to tell you actually the steps for doing that. So this could be challenging to the students. So can you see any challenges in that? I have one of my students actually here. So can you see that as something challenging.
But do you have students who are not adept at doing this type of thing? I mean, technologically adept?
They were amazing, actually. I could say that. Like, I didn't encounter any problems at all with the students here in Notre Dame, in using technology. Even those who were not familiar, they would group with someone else who would know the whole process. So it's a very good, actually, way for them to collaborate. So I usually actually have them, especially for the first year Arabic and the third year. So for the first year Arabic, I ask them to work in groups of 3 or 4, so they can get all the assistance they want. But then in the third year Arabic, I have them work like in groups of 2, and it has to be not a fun story. It has to be like a serious one, like a documentary. And then in the fourth year, they work individually. Actually, they do the whole work by themselves.
Knowing what is appropriate, what is not, when students start having fun, they may slip in a direction we don't want them to go.
Well, I did not also have problems with that. Yeah, maybe because the students here are very polite. But I didn't encounter actually a problem with that. But I did mention in the rubric that they have to mention citations and everything, like if they use anything. So, yeah, some of the students actually in the advanced level really find the problem like having a sound argument in their story. Because that's really important. You want to tell them that they should have a purpose for the story. It's not just any story. And also some students, it's a natural thing. They're not interested in doing something like that, and you need to motivate them and explain to them the benefits they will gain by doing that, because it doesn't just involve making a digital story. It involves reading, so you can, then it involves writing, and then the last actual step is making the story. So they do learn through doing all these steps. So sometimes you need to convince some students that this is actually good for them. And I didn't encounter that with my students, but I think it should be included in the challenges that some of the students might have problems with the hardware and software. And I remember that one of the students, she used, she had like a Mac computer, and then she had some problems and she kept emailing me back and forth, like, what can I do about this? So yeah, sometimes they do encounter some technology problems, especially at the last moment. But I'm being flexible with them about that. Like if someone is having a technology problem, I don't really deduct points if they submit it a little bit late. But they have to show that they were really serious and there is like a serious problem that we should work on. And also it's very time consuming for the students. So having that along with a final exam could be a little bit of a problem to the students.
When you said a digital story, I'm getting the sense that when you say story, I think of a certain thing, a narrative. But from what you're saying, it sounds as if you have different types.
Exactly, yeah.
Could you give us a concrete example of one that is not a narrative with a plot?
Yeah, sure. For example, for the advanced students, I'm going to show you actually an example, but one of the students, he talked about the democracy in the Middle East. And he wrote like a whole paper about that, and then submitted the draft, and then we worked in the draft, and then he started like collecting like pictures and sound and everything for his story and put it together. I have another student who talked about some of the financial problems in India. She had some Indian background, so she interpreted that in her paper. And one of the students, actually 2 of the students, they wanted to work together. And they had an argument between someone from Palestine and another one from Israel. And each one thinks that he's the one who's right. That one was really creative, it was really funny. And they actually asked another student who was not in the class to act as the announcer of the program. So yes, there are usually the first year Arabic students, they make like the funny things. They have like a person who's in the DVD, her name is Maha. So they had a story that everyone is proposing to her and everyone is telling her about some information about him or her, and then they try to convince her that he's the best one, using the vocabulary they already know. So there were a lot of ideas actually. Some considerations to the instructors. So the students actually, because it's a little bit time consuming, you want to guide them through every step. You don't want to tell them, okay, do your digital story, you know, you need to give them instructions about every